So you have played a lot of chess games, and you might be, it gets a little boring in the middle of it. And puzzles are a really good way to entertain yourself, even by playing chess itself. So today I'm going to show you some of the most mind-boggling puzzles I have seen, suited to the beginner level, and you'll definitely enjoy trying to solve them. This is the first puzzle. It might look a little less trivial to you than the usual puzzles that you solve because they are mostly, done by checks, captures, and threats. But this one might be a little different. So, white has moved his queen, and you are black. What do you think your next move is going to be? Uh, okay, I want you to always imagine the solution of puzzle in an entire sequential order, not just one single move. So yeah, two or three, or the entire line of it till you get satisfied. Okay, I'm winning something out of it. So think about it. I'll give you a few seconds. So here's the solution. If you have not think about it, pause the video and think again. But if you just want to know the solution, here it is. So, firstly, it's an obvious, a little obvious that you decide to take the rook. Why? Because it's available, and you will see what happens next. So you have taken it. He has taken it back. Now you are planning to do something. When I was initially seeing the puzzle, what was in my mind? My mind was focused on this square because the bishop is targeting it, and I somehow want to come take my queen here. If this queen was not here, I would have even done so, and then try to attack here, or maybe something like that. Maybe bring my queen here or something. But that is not happening, and this is how your game would also look like. You try to think of the most dangerous thing you could do, but when that does not happen, you think of something else. Well, if you see this particular situation, you know that the king is almost threatened with a back rank mate. So, what if I move my queen here? Now, why is this the correct move? Because the rook has to escape somewhere, and he cannot at least come here because I'll take the bishop, and that would be even less fruitful for him. If he tries to defend the bishop, I'll take the rook itself, and it will be a checkmate. So the entire thing that the rook can do is come to this square to at least be guarded by the queen, and you have a free bishop. And even then, you also have this checkmate hanging, but white will probably defend it. But the idea is that you got a free bishop. So yeah, that was the solution for this puzzle. There are multiple possibilities that we need to look through. So, in fact, okay, the first move is direct. It's a very close check by the queen. It follows checks, captures, threats, right? Now, once you have taken this, then the king has two possibilities to go either to h1 or to h3. h1 is a bad move by white because then knight to e3 is inevitable and this checkmate will be hanging. And the only way to stop this checkmate would be to take the knight with the queen. So I'll just show you if this happens, then this comes, and the only possibility is to either take this, otherwise checkmate to then one. However, white also has the possibility to go to h3. Now, h3 will save you for a little. Why? Because this mate is impossible because knight is here to protect the square, and that is why we will have to go through another way. So again, we'll firstly shift our knight. Why? Because we want this square to be protected. Because once the king is here, then I have a lot of pieces to play with. And oh, okay. I mean, you might argue that there are a lot of things that white could do at this moment. For example, bring the knight here. Why? Because it has to protect this square. So let's say it actually decides to do so. Well, this is a situation of mate and two. You might ask how. I'll show how. This check. What is the only possibility? I mean, if this knight comes up here, then there is a mate hanging. You could come here, queen to h1. That is a checkmate. Otherwise, if the king decides to go back, even in that scenario, this thing, knight to g4 is a checkmate because the king has no other option to go to. So clearly, this one is not an option. The other option might be knight to g5, but even that leads to distress. Why? Because okay, you might come here, then I'll give a check. Sorry, not even give a check. Take this knight itself. Okay, yeah, give a check first, then let the king come here. Then take the knight, have tempo, and even then the king will have to take it back, and then you can see that the king is in my half, and it is very problematic to play. So the only good move for white would be to in fact sacrifice the queen for a knight, be in loss for 5 points. But then shows that's the best move.
So this one is beautiful. You should actually give an entire thought about it and maybe actually also comment down what your solution is. I'll give you a few seconds again. So, if you have thought of the solution, let's check if you are correct. The first move is pretty obvious, I guess. You all can see that queen takes pawn. So, yeah, that's the obvious solution. And what does black decide to do? Go back. But here comes the beauty of it. What might be your next move? Well, if your answer was to maybe give the check with a knight and then, take the pawn and have the entire situation in control, no. The correct move is you sacrifice the queen. Why do you do so? Because this square is protected by the bishop, so the king can't take it, and the rook takes it. But whenever such a situation happens that the king is surrounded by his own pawns, you recognize that this is a really beautiful position for an extremely good checkmate. And that is what we do. We do this and then we push for the smaller knight. So yeah, that was the solution for this puzzle. Another classic example of a puzzle. So this is the situation. Again, give a thought. I'll come back in a few seconds. So now let's start with the solution. What do you think black should do? Well, black decides to move the queen to g6. A pretty obvious thing if you ask me, a direct check. So you do that, but how does white respond? Well, white has to, you know, white can't really go at this square or this square because if he decides to do so, then I'll give him a checkmate because my knight is supporting this square. So what does white do? White has to block with the knight, and it really doesn't matter. I'll take the knight. What does white do next? White blocks with the queen. So you might think, okay, we won a free knight, but no, we won a lot more. And this is the moment that we take this pawn. So see, you might be tempted to answer that knight takes this pawn and give him a check, but that is not really the best way because if knight takes pawn, then the king moves here or here, and I can't really take any advantage of it because I can't even take the knight because the queen is there. So knight takes pawn gives a check, that is correct, but this check is much better than the other one. And once we do so, then knight takes pawn, white is under check again, and as soon as the king moves anywhere, the queen can't kill the knight. Why? It's pinned. So as soon as the king moves anywhere, we take the queen. So yeah, that was the solution for this particular puzzle. When do I find the puzzle really beautiful? That is when no checks are directly involved. Even captures are not directly involved. So yeah, this is the puzzle. And you can see that you can't really attack black in any first move. There is no check. So yeah, think about it and have some time. If you've thought about the solution and you just want to check it, uh, you are at the right place. So you move the pawn. Why? Because you want to threaten the queen. That was our order, right? Checks, captures, and threats. And the moment you make this, what does black do? Well, black responds with the defense of the queen. He can't really take the pawn because my queen is there and anything. But what happened while we pushed the pawn? This diagonal got open, and that is why we pushed the pawn. So, yes, you take the bishop, but what is black's next move? Of course, he has to defend the rook. And it is at this position that we have to bring the bishop back. So, yeah, that was part of the puzzle. It was not really any brilliant move in such, but it was a part, so I just showed you.
In this scenario, it is right to move. You can see that moving the white king away would help white gain an advantage of taking away the queen because currently this pawn is pinned, and you might be tempted to look into this area simply because the queen is at the verge of being captured. But there is another area that could be explored, and in fact, that is even better. You can see that there is the white piece between the white queen and the black queen. So a discovery check is on its way. In fact, you can see that the knight is in 5 squares away from the king. So a double discovery check is also possible. And whenever that is possible, it's really beneficial to play that. Why? Because you are giving a check with the queen and with the knight. So capturing either of them is not an option because the check from the other will still be hanging. And you have to move your king away. There is no other option. So that is what we try to do. We decide to play either a check on f6 or a check on b6. But which one do we do? How do we decide? So you can see that in either case, let's say we have the f6 case. In that case, if the king decided to go to f8, then queen to e8 would be checkmate. So that is why the black king would never decide to go to f8 because the knight would be anywhere. King to e8 would be always a checkmate. Sorry, queen to e8 would always be a checkmate if king decides to go to f8. However, if king decides to go to d8, then it won't be a checkmate because the rook is still there. That is why we take the knight to d6. Why? Because once the king goes back to d8, then we have this particular check handle, knight to f7, and that will in fact be a mating position. So you can see that once we move this, the way black can go either this way or this way. If black decides to go to f8, we take our queen to e8. However, if black decides to go to d8, then we take this move, and that's a checkmate situation.
So it's black move now, and you can see that white is actually threatening promotion if this bishop goes away or something comes to the b or b square. And you have to escape this entire situation. Even the rook is dying and stuff is happening. So yeah, think about the entire solution to it because this puzzle is actually really great. I mean, I had a lot of fun solving this. So take some time, pause the video if you want more time because this puzzle is actually really good.
So that's it for today, guys. Do comment down below which was your favorite puzzle. And if you want to watch anything in particular, drop that down as well. We'll make content on it. And if you enjoy watching more such videos, please subscribe to Chess Raja.